Three, two, one. We are recording. Hello and welcome to the Avanti Entrepreneur Podcast. I am Dave Mamano, your host, and we are here to help entrepreneurial achievers and business owners and leaders move forward so that they can reach their potential. I do this by interviewing the nation's best business movers and shakers. Today I have on the show Rob Levin. Rob, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Dave.
Rob, I have known you for so long. When I met you, you had a full head of hair.
That's right. Well, I wouldn't say it was full, but there was some hair, yeah.
Fuller. Yet,
right.
Yet you're one of those guys that looks fantastic with no hair. So you're like fine wine, right? Yep. So you're like David. Did you really have to start out the podcast like that?
As long as my wife thinks so, we're all in good shape.
She, I see her with you, and she still seems very enamored. So,
right.
So, Avanti family, as you can tell, I've known Rob for a long time. Probably at least 15 years, if not more. My previous business was a magazine for high school students called Next Step U, and I was giving a workshop at a conference put on by Folio Magazine, which is a magazine for magazine publishers. Rob was in the audience, and I don't know if you picked the wrong workshop to come to, but you came to listen to my workshop, hung around afterwards. We struck up a friendship, and and I met you because you owned a magazine called the New York Enterprise Report in New York City, which was a magazine that helped small business owners grow their business, mostly in the Manhattan, New York City area. And that's when print was still was happening, right?
Right.
I miss it. That damn digital revolution. But that was a long time ago. That, when did you retire New York Enterprise Report?
I sold it in early 2014.
Okay, it's not too long ago.
Yeah.
That's actually when I sold Next Step U too. So no, that's when I retired the printed magazine, went online, and then in 2016 I sold the online piece. So, but what I want to do, Rob, is read your bio, let people know a little bit more about who you are. And then I want to, get your wisdom and nuggets of the year to help the Avanti family. So Rob Levin is the chairman of Work Better Now, which provides fantastic, affordable virtual assistance to small businesses. They believe that every business should have an assistant. Rob is also the CEO and chief SMB officer of RSL Media and editor-in-chief of Speak SMB. RSL Media builds successful programs that attract, engage, nurture, convert, and retain small and medium-sized business for enterprise brands such as Charter Communications, SAP, Concur, GoDaddy, and Office Depot. Rob founded the media company, which we were just talking about, the New York Enterprise Report, in 2003 to bring ideas and best practices from leading experts along with the inspirational interviews of highly successful interviews to business owners. With an engaged audience of 100,000 business owners and executives, the New York Enterprise Report also attracted advertisers such as Aetna, Capital One, Constant Contact, Guardian, Citi, and dozens of others. Prior to the New York Enterprise Report, Rob was CFO, COO, and CEO of several fast-growing companies. He began his career as a CPA for one of the world's top firms. Rob, again, welcome to the show. Great experience so far. And I love your experience because, excuse me, like me, you've had to pivot, adapt, and totally reinvent, right? And it's not easy, right? But once you're an entrepreneur, it is hard to go work for somebody else. So you find a way to change and survive and continue to grow. So appreciate the journey. I think we realize we're kind of like twins. We're about the same age. I think we got married the same year. We both went to SUNY schools. We were both magazine publishers, right? So you're I'm your Italian brother here in Rochester, right?
That's how I've always looked at you, Dave.
Yes. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Rob, want to hear more about really how it all started. Like, how did, it sounds like you were doing well. You were a CFO, a CEO, a CEO of some companies, probably making a good buck, which you have to live in the Manhattan area, probably, doing well and respected, but yet you chose to say, hey, screw it. I'm going to start a magazine. How did that decision come into play?
So it was a few things happening at the same time. I was CEO of a company. It was actually a publicly traded company, a subsidiary of a publicly traded company in the UK. And to make a long story short, there were things going on there that I was not okay with. There were some bad things going on there that I discovered shortly after becoming CEO. And I went to the board and I said, look, we have to fix these things. And they said, no, we're not fixing anything. We're going to keep doing things exactly the way we are. And I would think I was 31 or 32 at the time. And I was thinking, I don't want to have any part of this. So I left. And I decided I didn't want to work for anybody anymore. I always knew I was going to become an entrepreneur. I just didn't know when or how. And I guess, so that was around 2002. The past 5-6 years, I was, as you mentioned, a CFO and a COO, CEO of these businesses. And there was no manual on best practices for anything from how to do collections and the best way to handle the finance department of a growing business to, how to establish a good culture. A lot of my companies that I was involved with were international. And I was like, there are people out there that know how to do this stuff. And then it kind of hit me. Why don't I start a media company that will help business owners? And I'll do that by tapping into the best experts around, not just from the New York area. We serve the entire New York tri-state area and beyond. You were a reader up in Rochester, and we had readers in California and stuff like that. But I wanted the best experts from all over the country. So without having a whole lot of experience in the media business, I just said, I'm going to do this, and figured out how to produce the magazines, events, and build an audience and sell. I didn't know how to sell at the time, and took sales training lessons and built a team up. And, before you know it, we had a pretty big audience, and the advertisers came. And of course, that's not easy. I had to sell advertising and sponsorship. And then, interestingly, we were doing customized programs. It wasn't called content marketing back then. That term didn't exist. That term actually, the first time I heard it was at another Folio. I think it was either Folio or Niche Media Conference. You remember those? And I heard a guy named Joe Polizzi, I think he was still with Penton at the time, talking about this content marketing concept. And we were actually doing that kind of stuff for companies like Constant Contact and Aetna and Citibank. Joe went on to start the Content Marketing Institute, which he sold a few years ago, and did an unbelievable job building that. But we were then doing, what content marketing before it was that. So when I sold the media company in 2014, I kept our content marketing division, which is now RSL Media. And here we are.
Yep. So what does RSL Media do? Give me an example.
Sure. So if you look at how small businesses buy today, I'm going to give you the really short version. Their buying journey usually starts with they have some sort of opportunity they're trying to capitalize on, or they have a challenge they're trying to overcome. And the best way for brands to market to that audience, which is very hard, very busy people, is to provide them with information, with ideas, with solutions, with inspiration. And they do that through content. And brands, big brands these days, that almost all of them, the marketing creativity is outsourced to agencies. Where we come in is we believe nobody knows the small business market and the psyche of the small business owner, whether it's somebody with 5 employees or with 500 employees. Nobody knows that better than we do. So we create these content-based programs for some of the companies that you mentioned that help them attract, engage, nurture, convert, and retain small businesses.
Excellent.
So if you went to spectrumbusinessinsights.com, for example, you'll see the content they put out that we produce for them.
Great. Oh, that's so you're working with some pretty big brands.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. So that, business was and still is a great business, but then your entrepreneurial instincts kicked in, and yet you started another business that you're also running. Tell me about that.
We can't help ourselves, can we?
Oh, it's a drug. It
is. It is like a drug. It's a good drug, though. The side effects usually aren't too bad.
Right.
So what happened was, I think like 2013, I ran into, somebody stopped me on the street in Manhattan. And remember, we had a pretty big audience. And I kind of knew this guy. He was several years younger. I'm not going to mention his name right now. And he said, look, Rob, I got an idea. I'd like to discuss it with you. And I said, great. And he said, why don't you have your assistant reach out to my assistant? Here's her information. And I said, I don't have an assistant. He goes, remember, at the time I was publisher of this media company. He goes, Rob Levin doesn't have an assistant. And so then he explained to me about his assistant and how he wouldn't even imagine running a business without one or running his life without one. Long story short, I hired an assistant about less than a year after that. I've had my assistant now for 5 years, and I cannot imagine life without her. She has changed the way I kind of do business, and also has made a big impact in my life. I have a lot more free time, et cetera. So fast forward a couple of years ago, I was talking with a buddy of mine, somebody I went to school with, who lives out in LA. And we decided that there's a huge opportunity to help businesses by bringing an affordable virtual assistant solution to them. And we started Work Better Now, which has been growing, and we're really excited about it. Because as you said, we believe every business should have an assistant.
So tell me about your assistant. So I don't have one, right? And I should get one, but I think a lot of people think, oh, can I afford it? What would he or she do for me? I'm an entrepreneur. It's tough for me to take things off my plate. So give me the pitch here. Why should every entrepreneur have a virtual assistant?
And by the way, there are some business owners, not entrepreneurs, business owners that won't work well with an assistant. Those that can't let go at all, it's going to be tough, right? But everybody else, which is the majority, should have an assistant. Why? Because where do you thrive as a business owner? How do you create value? How do you build your net worth? How do you make it create a great growth structure for your employees? And how do you better serve your clients? You do that by focusing as the business owner on high valued activities, whether that's business development, whether that's servicing your clients, thinking about new products, working on the culture in your company. And even if you have a very small business, I mean, most of my team my team is entirely remote. And we use a lot of freelance writers, and we tap into subject matter experts, et cetera. I have a relatively small team. I still need to have an assistant, particularly now with more than one business. And what we did is we realized people have the same concerns you do, which is, how am I going to get started with the assistant? So we developed an onboarding program that gets the assistant working for you day one. Because whether it's dealing with your calendar, or some people have their email screened, or updating your CRM with updated contact information, or building prospect lists. This is a huge one for anybody in the B2B space. Salespeople hate prospecting. Your assistant, just as mine does, can be building lists of people you should be speaking with by doing research on LinkedIn, and then allowing you to either feed that into a marketing automation platform, which, as you know, is very inexpensive these days and affordable to just about any small business. There's so many different things. We actually published an article on small business trends. I don't know if you know Anita Campbell and Small Business Trends. Great resource for small businesses on the 47 tasks that virtual assistants can do for you. We're actually maintaining that list on our site as well, which continues to grow. So there's so many things you can do that allow you to focus on those high valued activities and let your assistant deal with all of those other things that you shouldn't be spending your time on. And quite frankly, I don't like doing those things.
Yeah.
I'm not good at it either.
And I know your assistant. I don't know her personally. Her name is Jessica. And when I want to get an appointment with you, the first thing you do is she responds and schedules the appointment. That probably saves you a ton of time going back and forth with scheduling phone calls.
8 to 10 hours a week.
Yeah.
8 to 10 hours a week with all the meetings and calls I have, and the rescheduling, because there's always everything's always rescheduled these days.
Yeah. And the thing is, she's remote, right? I mean, she could be anywhere in the world, right? Doesn't matter.
In fact, our assistants from Work Better Now, as my assistant is, are based in Central America. And the reason we went that route is we found assistants that were very polite, very capable. English is flawless, both verbal and written. They're in the same time zone as us here in the States. And because they're in Central America, where the cost of living is a lot less, we're able to price our assistants for a full-time dedicated assistant for $1,600 a month. It makes it almost impossible for somebody to say no, who's interested in focusing. Anybody who's interested in focusing on those higher valued activities, again, things like business development, working on the culture in your company, developing your team, it becomes a no-brainer, which is why we love our model, and it's been doing really well.
That's great. So now I want to dig into the Rob Levin brain a little bit and get some nuggets for our listeners. You've launched 3 brands, right, that we know about, and you've had a pivot and survive. If you were sitting down with an entrepreneur who maybe launched about a year and a half ago, they have the flywheel turning, some revenues coming in. But they're starting to get overwhelmed, right? They're starting, maybe too many opportunities to think about. Maybe they're, the whack-a-mole game is getting out of hand, and they're having a tough time remembering why they wanted to be an entrepreneur, but they know they still want to be one and find that promised land, right? What are you going to tell this person to hang in there, and what to spend the next 6 months doing?
Yeah, well, you look, when you're starting a new business, it's really impossible to get around the working 24/7 for a year or two. There's no question about that. But I'm a big fan of Dan Sullivan and Strategic Coach. I don't know if you're familiar with them, Dave.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just up there a couple months ago.
Yeah, fantastic program. Can't recommend it enough. Mm-hmm. And among the tenets that Dan talks about is focusing on unique ability. And the most successful entrepreneurs I know, as soon as they could, hired, whether you're hiring freelancers, hiring an assistant, or hiring, building your full-time dedicated team, the sooner you can get people that are taking the things off your plate that are not the things that you're best at. So your unique ability, as Dan would say, if I remember correctly, it's things you're really good at that people pay a lot of money for, there's a lot of value, and that you enjoy doing. And everything else should be off your plate. The sooner you can start to do those things and make those investments, not expenses in people, but investments, the better you are. Another thing that Dan says, which really is perfect for this discussion, is when something needs to get done, think who, not how. Don't think about how you're going to do it. Think who is going to do it, allowing you, again, to focus on these unique abilities, which are really the things that drive the growth of the company.
Yeah, listen to it.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead, Dave.
No, you go ahead. Finish up, please.
Yeah, which is, again, it falls into what we do with providing virtual assistants, taking those 47 plus tasks off of your plate and getting somebody else to do it so you can focus on high value activities. I do not want to be spending my time finding, 2:30 works. No, 2:30 doesn't work. Right. Yeah. Jessica does it so much better than I do, allowing me to have more of those discussions, focus on, how are we going to pivot our marketing strategy for the company? That's where I'd rather be spending my time.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And Dan Sullivan. So I didn't know you went through the program. Did you do it in Toronto?
I did it in Toronto. Yeah.
Yeah. So
I waved every time I passed by your flew over your house.
Thanks for letting me know. I appreciate that. So, and I do listen to Dan's podcast, and I went up for a free seminar a couple months ago and signed up for the program. So I'm going to be doing it in April. Right now we're in February. So yeah. But Dan, Google what Rob just said. Obviously, folks, Google Dan Sullivan. Who? Not how, because he has a podcast that I listened to, and he talked about that a couple months ago. And just the 10-minute podcast of him talking about that blew me away. I'm like, that
mind blown
is gold, right? Because we do as entrepreneurs, we want to, how do we do this? What are we going to do? And we get like knee deep in it, and we probably suck at it, right? And but who is great at it, right? Who is like, I know what I suck at, and I strive to delegate it, right? And then keep obviously set up some systems to know what's going on, but how could I give that to somebody else, right? And really diving into, I think, what you called your one unique talent. How do we spend most of our time?
It may be more than one, but yeah, digging into your unique ability and getting rid of everything else.
Yeah, what is your unique ability, Rob?
That's a great question. I think I have a few, but the one that and by the way, the other, I just want to mention this. Dan said something about unique ability, or maybe it wasn't Dan, maybe it was the coach that I had in Toronto, but it obviously came from Dan, which is you don't always realize it's unique. You think everybody else sees the same things you do, and that's the magic, is understanding what your unique ability is. I have this unique ability to really understand the small business market and understand business owners. where I can, and you probably have this as well, Dave. I always say that if I'm sitting with a client, so somebody from a big company that maybe knows a little bit about the small business market, were to sit down with you and I and listen to you and I talk shop, it'll sound like English, but they won't really follow entirely what we're saying, because we really understand business owners, and we also understand the different segments of business owner, the business owner that routinely grows companies that they sell for 8 or 9 figures, versus the business owner that's more of like a lifestyle entrepreneur. Like, we understand that. I understand that, and I happen to also understand how to market to that audience. So that's one of my unique abilities. And then also because I have that multi-functional background, I was a CPA and a CFO. I'm able to kind of look at a company from many different angles. Sales and marketing is the lifeblood for a small business, but cash flow is really important, right? So you got to know how to read those financial statements and quickly understand what's going on in a business. And I think that's another unique ability I have. Well,
and I think looking at you from the outside in, I think connecting with mentors as well, people that can help you. Years ago, you introduced me to Norm Brodsky, who is a big mentor of yours and now a close friend, right? All these years. And he was on a cover of New York Enterprise Report, right?
The first cover.
The first cover. That's right. The first cover. And Norm, if you don't know Norm Brodsky, Google him. He's a legend among legends. He's been writing for Inc. magazine for, 25 years as a column. But really is an incredible, brilliant business owner. And he is also quick to share about how he totally crashed his first business, right? Massive debt, but rebooted and grew, again in a big way to the tunes of selling the company for let's just say many millions of dollars, right?
9 figures, yeah.
Yeah, he's doing okay. Yeah. He's doing okay. In fact, what I'll do is underneath when I post this, I have a video interview that I did with Norm a couple of years ago. I'll post that as well because he tells this whole story, which I love. Because Norm could just pretend he's a total rock star 24/7, but he talks about how he essentially crashed $100 million business, right? And but rose from the ashes, right? So that's what we do, right? So Rob, I want to also.
His story is a great story. It's a great story. Sorry, guys. Go ahead.
No. So you live in Manhattan, which is,
No. I moved out of Manhattan 6 years ago. I moved to Riverdale, which is a little north of Manhattan, still in New York City.
It's the Bronx.
Correct.
Right. Well, hey, listen. For us upstate New Yorkers, I should say the New York City area, right? So, but where I live, it's actually it's probably the few blocks where I live, that Riverdale area, it's probably more rural than where you are, believe it or not. You think so? All right, I got to come over. Yeah. You've invited me to come over.
You got to come over.
I got to come over.
I have a nice whiskey collection, so anytime.
I know. You have the Scotch nights with Norm. I love that.
I do.
So, but essentially, you're doing business in the greater New York area. Go. I mean, it's the height of I'll say intensity when it comes to business. And so what are some of your personal habits for success so that you keep it together, right? Because, you've got a commute, you've got businesses in New York City, you've got a family, you've got young kids. How do you, maintain this apparently from the outside, very calm, relaxed Rob Levin that we see?
I think it's a few things. I've never really thought about this, but I started meditating a few years ago. That has helped significantly. I work out regularly. I do some martial arts. That also has helped kind of keep me in balance. So I eat well. I think it's all of those things. And then I also have like a work environment that is just very comforting for me. I don't work too much from home, which I used to do all the time. I'm not saying I'm able to always turn off, but I think it's a combination of all of those things and having a balanced life. I mean, a few weeks ago, I went down to Cancun. There was they call it Playing in the Sand, a Grateful Dead festival. And, I still go to Jazz Fest in New Orleans every year. I've been doing that almost every year since the mid-'90s. So, it's trying to have that balance, play guitar.
Yeah.
I think it's a lot of those. It's make sure you have a life and taking care of yourself.
Yeah. I didn't know you were a deadhead.
I am.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not like a tie-dye wearing guy, but I love the Dead.
Yeah. No, I back in the 80s and 90s, I went to about 12 shows myself. So maybe I'll have to go to that Cancun festival with you. That sounds nice.
Yeah. They're going to be in Saratoga. I just got tickets in August. So if you want to meet there.
Absolutely.
Right down 90.
All right.
Right down the thruway.
Let's make it a date. I'd love to see you there. So Rob, you got the two businesses going. Where do you go from here? What do you think is next for Rob Levin?
There's something else I'm working on too. We can't help ourselves, but right now RSL Media is the brands kind of need us more than ever. So really focused on growing that. That said, I'll tell you, it's getting harder to sell into larger companies. So I've actually been doubling up my efforts on reaching out to people that we've done work with in the past. In fact, I spoke today, just about an hour ago, with somebody that we did work with at Constant Contact about 10 years ago, and she's making an introduction for me at a brand that I'm not going to mention right now. So focusing on that and Work Better Now, and like I said, I have a new initiative that I'll be getting off the ground over the next couple of months. I think that's enough to keep me busy for now.
That's enough. Plus, you have a wife and a couple of kids too. So.
Yeah. It's funny. I went to an event, saw a great speaker on Tuesday, and I ran into some Vistage chairs that I knew very well, and the person who moderated the speaker didn't do a great job. We'll kind of leave it at that. And the Vistage chair, who has known me probably for 15 years, said, aren't you like itching to get back in and moderate that event or start the magazine? And I said, no, I think that time is came and went, and it was a fantastic experience. Got to meet people like you and Norm and hundreds of other business owners. So I'm not going back into the media business, but the marketing business is a lot of fun, and Work Better Now, helping business owners change their lives is very rewarding.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So Rob, if people want to get in touch with you, learn more about you, what are you doing? Where are you? What's the best way to do all that stuff?
Yeah. So, I'm obviously on LinkedIn, although I'll tell you, maybe I'm too old school. I don't respond to introductions unless I know somebody, unless there's a note that's compelling. But Levin411 on Twitter is a great way to engage. And of course, you can find more information about our virtual assistant program at workbetternow.com.
Excellent. If anybody wants a personal introduction to Rob, email me, david@davidmamano.com, and I will make a personal introduction. Hey, Rob.
And I don't say no to you.
And I love that about you.
I never have.
You never have. You never have. I appreciate that. I'm not going to push that luck, but so far I appreciate that very much. All right, Rob, thank you so much. Appreciate your time and everything that you've been doing. And I'm going to see you in Saratoga in August. How's that sound?
See you there. I'm looking forward to it. And thanks again, Dave. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely, Rob. Thank you. And thank you, Avanti listeners, Avanti family. Really appreciate you being on the podcast or, listening to the podcast. Go to AvantiEntrepreneur.com to see all that we're doing. Hundreds more podcasts there, content, events, the whole works, AvantiEntrepreneur.com. And make sure to have a great day and stay awesome.